I'm gonna explain about the Article 1197, which states that if the obligation does not fix a period, from its nature and the circumstances, it can be inferred that the period was intended. The court may fix the duration thereof. So, if there are obligation that nawala siya a certain period of time, yet the period was intended by both parties, the court may fix the period. So there are exemptions on that as well, because the court generally without power to fix a period. So meaning that the court cannot intervene to any circumstances when both parties decide to fix or to negotiate with a period of time. So the court shall also fix the duration of the period when it depends upon the will of the debtor. So the court shall also fix the duration of the period. So the court can only have the power or can only fix a period if the debtor agrees so. So same as to both parties, if the both parties agrees to fix a period or agree to the court fixing the period, that is the only way that the court can fix a period. So it always depends to the parties as well, if they contemplated or they have decided this duration to be fixed. They will be followed. So in every case, the court shall determine such period as may under the circumstances have been probably contemplated by the parties. So once fixed by the court, the period cannot be changed by them. So necessary pud na kailangan i-know or i-determine sa court if contemplate ba ang both parties about the intended periods. Wala siyang consideration na kailangan i-follow as well by the court, because if the two parties have contemplated on a period of time that was intended, the court cannot have power to change them. Or if the both parties have contemplated to decide about these intended periods, the court it can never change by them as well. So example of this one is magpa-construct og balay. So the contractors are actually called in. The contractors, gitawag sila to build a house. Now, di man pwede nga walay period of time or walay fixed period of time na mahuman ang balay. So kailangan ang both parties, ang gapahimo og balay ug ang contractor, kailangan, and it's necessary for this kind of business na mga sila contractors na period of time, na intended period of time na mahuman jud ang balay. Di man pwede nga magsige sila construct walay certain period of time para mahuman ang balay. So that is why kailangan na if contractual mo na siya ang obligation to build a house, and the intended period of time is siguro, let's say, around 3 years. Then after that, if ang contractor wala niya nabuhat sa intended period of time, the court may fix what certain time that the contractors must have done the job. So if not, demandable ang period. Munang demandable siya sa demandable to it's demandable or should the period fixed by the court. Alright. So there are exemptions to the general rule. So if ang general rule is the court, general rule. So if ang general rule is ang court cannot doesn't have a power to intervene and to fix a period of time, there are exemptions to that. According to 1197, all obligations therein there are two cases that the court is authorized to fix a period of time. So whenever the court fixes the term for an obligation, it does not thereby amend or modify the same. It merely enforces or carries out the intention of the parties. So meaning ani, ang court kung ang court ang mag-fix sa term sa obligation, it doesn't mean na gi-amend or gi-modify siya, but gi-enforce lang siya sa mga unsay gusto sa both parties. So unsay intention sa both parties, gi-enforce lang na sa court. It doesn't mean na sila jud ang mag-fix sa term, but they are be the ones who guide the two parties to fix the period of time. So mana siya ang first. It cannot arbitrarily fix a period out of thin air, and law expresses prescribed. The court shall determine such period as may under the circumstances have been probably contemplated by the parties. So, if ang duha ka parties contemplate na sila sa period of time, but there are in under circumstances it wasn't followed or completed, that is the time that the court may fix, or if the court has the authority to fix the period of time. So if there is no period is fixed but a period was intended, so if it also says here in 1197, no period is fixed but the period was intended. If the obligation does not fix a period, but it can be inferred from its nature and the circumstances that a period was intended by the parties, the court may fix the period. So if ang obligation wala siya certain nga period, wala siya fixed na period gibutang, but there was intended period which was contemplated by the court, the both parties in any circumstances, the intended period needs to be kailangan siya og fixed period, that is when the court may fix the period. So that is for 1197. So for for 1198, the debtor shall lose every right to make use of the period. So there are circumstances that the obligation is demandable or not demandable. So it says here in one, whenever after the obligation has been contracted, he becomes insolvent unless he gives a guarantee or security for the debt. So if for example there is certain obligation, so ikaw magasabot mo, di ba, gasabot mo na magpautang ka og 10,000 in exchange 10,000, nagpautang kag 10,000 unya katoy magiutangan, ka-experience og insolvency. So ang insolvency is mo na siyang time nga mas taas ang imong liabilities kaysa sa imong asset. So meaning dili siya ingon nga kanang wala jud kay asset, but na kay asset mas taas lang jud kay bayro nun, or mas taas lang jud imong liability. So mo ni siya ang time nagagive ka og security or warranty. That is when you give a laptop in exchange for the 10,000 peso, which you become insolvency, you cannot pay that one because due to insolvency, so you give a warranty security. Di mo siya matagan og laptop, balag insolvent ka, wala kay guarantee or security para sa imong debt na gibuhat, that is when the obligation is demandable. So number 2, when he does not furnish to be the creditor that guarantees or securities which he has promised. So for example, nag-promise ka. So mag-promise ka na magpahulam ko og 10,000 sa imuha. Then nag-promise ka nga bayaran na nimo og 10 years. So sa 10 years na gi-allow ta ka nga bayaran na, imuhang ayuhon ang ako ang laptop. So mo na siya. When no. So money ang pasabot ani niya is promise. So pahulmon ti ka og 10,000, gi-promise ko nimo nga imuha kong hatagan og laptop in exchange of the 10,000. Mo na siya ang meaning sa promise. So if imuhang gi-promise na imo siyang tagaan og laptop in exchange of 10,000, dula nimo siya gitagaan og laptop in exchange sa 10,000 na imong giutang, that is when the obligation is demandable. So by his own acts, he was impaired said guarantees or securities after their establishment, and when through a fortuitous event they disappear unless he immediately gives new one equally satisfactory. So meaning ani niya is if ang imong gihatag nga guarantees or if imong gihatag sa kuha nga laptop kay guba, that is when dayon tagaan ko nimo og equally satisfactory atong or paayo na nimo ang laptop, ihatag nimo sa kuha or imuhang ilisdan og bago na equally satisfactory sa laptop, dili demandable ang obligation. Pero if dili ko nimo tagaan or dili mo ipa-repair ang impaired na or guba na laptop, demandable ang obligation. So it also says here, and when through a fortuitous event they disappear. So for example, ang imuhang tang ihatag sa ako ang guarantee or of security or imong laptop nga ihatag ko sa ako in exchange of 10,000, naanod tungod sa baha. Ang fortuitous event mo na siya mga events na dili nimo ma-foresee before or even after, di mo ma-foresee, or mga phenomenal or mga disasters, dili ka ka-control kumbaga. If kana siya na nahitabo na siya sa imuhang promise ay imuhang guarantees na ihatag or security na ihatag nimo sa ako in exchange of 10,000, dayon hatagan pud nimo so in exchange ana, since nawala man to, dili na nimo ma-secure imong guarantees, hatagan sa nimo bagong laptop na the same satisfactory sa laptop nga katong guba, meaning dili demandable ang obligations. Pero if dili ka na makatagan og equally satisfactory atong laptop na nawala na is security, kumbaga security nimo sa kuha para pambayad sa 10,000, mo na siya demandable ang obligation. So fourth, when the debtor violates any undertaking in consideration of which the creditor agreed to the period. So for example, kani siya kay for example, magpautang kog 10,000. Dayon in exchange anang kuan, then in exchange anang 10,000 pabayron ti kag 10 years. So consider nako, di ba? I-consider nako nga 10 years di mo siya bayaran. If dili ka kakaya sa 10 years, let's say 10 years, sa tagang 10 years bayan ng 10,000. Dayon niingon ka nga tungod sa 10,000 ayuhon pag tungod sa 10 years na maghatag sa ako para makabayad ko sa imong 10,000, imuhang ayuhon pud ang ako ang laptop. Dili demandable ang panana, dili demandable ang obligation. Pero if ikaw, for example, nagpautang ang 10 years na akong gihatag sa imuha nga mubayad ka sa imuhang utang nga 10,000, nya wala ni mo giayo ang akong laptop na mo imong giingon nga imuhang iayuhon after sa consideration akong gihatag nga 10 years nimo siya bayaran ang utang, wala ni mo giayo ang laptop, that is when demandable ang obligation. Lastly, when the debtor attempts to abscond. So if if ang debtor murag attempts to abscond, so meaning murag mulangyaw or maadto sa lugar or mo hawa sa isa ka lugar, but if attempt lang siya, wala jud kay ingon na nag-abscond, dili demandable ang obligation. Meaning nga na nibalik ka gibayaran ni mga utang, dili demandable ang obligation. Pero if mulangyaw jud ka kay di ka ganan mo bayad sa 10,000, mo ni reason na nilangyaw jud ka niya kung nag-abscond jud ka, that is when demandable ang obligations. Now, ang katong 1, 2, 3 katong 1, 2, 3 and 4, if that was followed, if number 1 imuhang gihatag og security, ma-use ang period of time na gihatag sa imuha to pay the obligation. If number 2 gitagaan nimo siya, since imong gi-promise gihatag nimo ang laptop in exchange of 10,000, imuha dya pong magamit ang period of time na sabutan intended ninyo para bayaran ang mga utang, as well as so 4 to 3 and 4. So I guess that's all.